It's game number 2. Lossett appears to be up a game, and we'll get an idea of what the board state does look like here. We have a Jace flipped on Timothy's side. A couple of lands over there as well. Looks like game 1 took quite a while, as these players only have 5 lands on the battlefield. Both players with a decent amount of cards in hand. There's a Bloodstained Mire, and Lossett will just pass the turn back.
Koerber's hand is just loaded. Looks like
there's
7 cards.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards over there. Unclear what the contents are at this point, but he's got a lot of stuff. He'll just take a draw step for now. I am a little surprised at the lack of play Narset Transcendent has seen.
Well, it's, you know, a 4-mana planeswalker doesn't impact the board and requires that your spell deck has a ton of spells in it. Most of the decks that want to play Narset are going to want to play a lot of lands, so there's already a lot of misses baked in. And some of the creatures like Jace and Soulfire Grandmaster are so powerful, even for spell-dense decks, that it's just hard to build a deck where you're hitting frequently with the plus. At least this is what I've seen.
Sure.
There could be other problems, but
it's Nobzon Charm here for Joe. He'll draw 2 cards at the expense of 2 life, and now he'll take another draw step. Treasure Cruise is what he's found. We'll see where Joe wants to go now. Looks like he's just going to go for a cruise. So he's going to gas back up too. And it looks like Joe wants to sacrifice the Bloodstained Mire before casting the cruise to be able to probably delve that away. Or maybe he wants to search for a certain land and not draw that land. So he's going to get himself a Cinderglade. And now 3 cards will be on the way. Going to delve away quite a few lands, it appears. And Jace going to bite the dust. A couple spells as well. And now Cruz is going to resolve. So we'll see what's next here for Joe. Does have a Nissa in hand now.
what's really interesting to me about the standard format is there's really no end of how much bigger you can go than someone else.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of just ancestral recalls floating around, planeswalkers that generate 3-for-1s pretty easily. Not all those cards are good in every single matchup, of course, and not all of them are good even in all the late game matchups, but you can really just keep ancestraling every turn if that's what you're interested in.
Here is Nissa. And Lossett is going to search now for a forest. That is an aspect I like about this standard format. You can go bigger and bigger and bigger. You can draw a lot of cards. And you can really tailor your deck to play some 1-ofs and 2-ofs and be able to find them consistently.
Yes.
So if you have found a pretty sweet trump, you're going to be able to find it during your games, most likely. Here's a fetch land.
And Lossett's deck draws a lot of cards and has Bring to Light, so
Yep.
he's naturally well-suited to doing that sort of thing.
Nissa's here.
All right, Magic players in the Legacy event.
And it's going to start
Welcome to round
by going
one.
up.
You have 50 minutes.
Negate is the card that he found, so he'll get to draw that one. A little bit of protection for his Planeswalker. And now here's Jace. And now Lossett will pass the turn back over to Koerber, who's going to play a Kolaghan's Command. So he's going to kill the Jace and return the Dragmaster Outcast.
Yeah, no real reason there to make Lossett discard when just Ancestral then Nissa.
Yeah.
Might as well get back your Outcast.
I'll just discard the forest, I guess.
Yeah.
6th land there for Timothy, which means the Dragmaster Outcast is going to join the party. Going to start to threaten that interaction. Here comes Soulfire Grandmaster. It's going to go towards Nissa. Koerber will gain 2 life, of course. And now Jace is going to tick up. And Lossett's going to, on Koerber's end step, sacrifice this Flooded Strand. So he'll dig a land out of his deck, likely to be a battle land, given what his basics look like, but he'll go with the basic plains instead. Looks like he wants a little bit more white mana.
Or just have more overlap between his fetches and battle lands going forward.
Yep.
Color mana and quantity mana don't seem to be issues, so just make sure you don't leave yourself in a position where you draw a fetch land and have no lands left to get in the deck.
For Nissa, it'll find a wooded foothills. There's a swamp for the turn. That'll be Lossett's land drop.
Very important for him to get the Dragon Master Outcast off the table this turn, especially since his sweeper appears to be languished, which means that he can't catch up to the dragons if he fails to answer this turn.
And Languish is actually pretty good right now.
The question is, can Lossett get it to resolve? I think what he's considering right now is, does he need to draw a number of cards to try to find a second counterspell to punch this through? Koerber's been sitting with a bunch of mana up on all of his turns. I think Lossett only has a negate right now for protection, and given how important it is for him to get this Languish to resolve, I think he's going to dig for another counterspell, or hope that this Treasure Cruise baits out a counterspell, and then he can try to push through the Languish with negate backup.
Well, the Cruise is going to resolve. So 3 cards on the way, Siege Rhino among them. And now we're going to see the Languish. And this is likely where the fight begins.
Yep.
There's negate, and Joe would like to negate back. And does Koerber have an answer? He has another negate. And Lossett might be out of answers here. And wow. Wow.
Yep. He knows he's beat.
Wow.
He knows he's beat. How's he's once the 5/5 gets made, his hand's not worth very much.
Yeah, I guess he just can't ever get out of that situation.
And look at the clock. I mean, a tournament of this size, you can expect that X3 and 1 has a shot of making the top 8, but X3 and 2 will not. So a draw here for Lossett is basically the same as a loss. So at that point, he might as well just try to pick this one up and do his best to win the game inside of 5 minutes. It's going to be really hard to do.
Yeah.
But I don't mind a concession there.
Okay. If he believes that he is just straight up dead to Dragon Master Outcast making a dragon, which, I mean, he can see the game, so that's clearly what he's thinking and saying, then completely understood.
He might not have spot removal in his deck for the Dragon Master Outcast.
Yep.
His plan might just be to counter it or get it with a Languish. So it's not surprising to me there that Lossett was just beat. Also, what was interesting there is that Koerber, probably sensed the same thing was happening, didn't even think about negating the Treasure Cruise. Just said, go ahead and do that. I'm going to save these 2 negates to try to keep my Dragon Master Outcast in play. That was exactly what happened as he was able to negate back on a Languish and a negate, and Lossett immediately conceded.
Well, these players are getting ready here for game number 3 now. I think we'll see some quick shuffling at a presentation because they don't have a lot of time to work with.
Yeah, and they're both in law. For the purposes of making top 8 at least, draw and loss are the same thing.
Yep. It's unclear if X3-1's going to be able to make it to the top 8. We've seen it happen before.
Now, X2 and 2 might be able to make it, but if X3 and 1 can make it, then you would assume X2 and 2 would also be able to make it. So, short of it here is Lossett is trying to avoid what is functionally a loss for him for the purposes of making top 8, and given the Players' Championship implications, he's really trying to get a top-heavy finish.
Yep. And Joe going to take a look as he did mulligan here. He'll leave it on top. Included Delta pass the turn back. So we're underneath 4 minutes here. I would be very surprised if they can finish. I'm sure they will try, as there's a swamp from Joe. Here's a Jace as well.
Yeah, it looked like Lossett kept Polluted Delta as the only land, Jace on the play. That's a hand that maybe you can't keep if there's no Vancouver mulligan, but with that extra look at a land, Lossett was willing to keep it.
There's a Jace for Koerber. Lossett will take a draw step here. We'll see a Jace activation here in a minute, I imagine. Siege Rhino, Utter End, Polluted Delta in hand. Treasure Cruise as well. Joe going to sacrifice this.
Imagine we're going to be looking at Prairie Stream here.
It's going to go with the Smoldering Marsh.
Well, if he has Kolaghan's Command, this makes a lot of sense. I saw Utter End in his hand as removal.
Looks like it is Kolaghan's Command.
Good opening here for Lossett.
Yeah, it's not bad on a Mole 6.
I don't know if this is a win the game in 2 minutes opening, but this is a very good 6-card hand.
Yep. Well, you resolve a Siege Rhino next turn. Maybe it is. Koerber going to discard Polluted Delta. Lossett will pass the turn back. Land number 3 there for Koerber's a Mountain. And Jace going to go active. Lossett will draw and discard. Another Jace is an easy one to discard. Now he'll draw. All right, Flooded Strand. That can go find Canopy Vista. Tick-tock, it goes the clock.
Well, that doesn't
that doesn't cast Siege Rhino.
He can cast Utter End now.
Yep.
He can't cast Siege Rhino.
Yeah, he can't. Yeah, that's awkward. I thought he was going to be able to cast the Rhino straight up.
As it turns out, trying to curve Jace into Kolaghan's Command into Siege Rhino isn't exactly free.
Yep.
It's close to free. It's just not quite free.
So he gets the Treasure Cruise instead.
Yeah, not a bad consolation prize.
I've seen worse. That'll be Disdainful Stroke. Pass the turn back. Kolaghan's Command the draw here for Koerber.
And that's a huge draw. I mean, Lossett's down to 2 cards in hand, is really leaning on this Jace.
Timothy going to sacrifice his fetch line. We'll see what he's up to this turn.
Lossett's hand might go from boom to bust real fast here if he's down to 1 card in hand and just 4 lands in play after how good his opening was. There are just a lot of 2-for-1s floating around in Standard.
Yep. It's really a 2-for-1 format, it feels like. And then the Atarka's Command deck, Atarka Red, just tries to blow up the 2-for-1 deck before it can get going.
The ultimate card advantage, which is your opponent dying with spells in their hand.
Yes, yeah. Lossett will draw and discard here. It looks like Abzan Charm's going to bite the dust.
Really surprised here that Koerber's allowing Lossett to go into his turn. Unless he's sitting on some sort of counter spell that he really prioritizes here, but Kolaghan's Command on the Jays seemed very attractive to me there.
Here's Siege Rhino.
Now the curve here is, well, now at this point you can't even really Disdainful Stroke, as the Jace would be able to flip into a Planeswalker, and then the Kolaghan's Command doesn't work anymore. So he's sort of got to let this Rhino resolve.
There is Kolaghan's Command. Let's not going to activate the Jace. Wow, I'm going to discard the Utter End. Okay. That means the other card he found was pretty good. And now he's going to lose the Bring to Light. Okay, sure, because it's shock and discard. Yep, makes sense.
All right, well.
Turn 1 now.
I believe we're looking at a draw.
I think it's basically locked in. Even if Lossett, if he got 2 attacks, that puts him down to 8, and then even 2 Rhino triggers will put him down to 2.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if back-to-back Rhinos is a win.
Yeah. I suppose if he drew a Rhino this turn.
Yeah, it's 7 points and then it's 7 points and then 11 points. So back-to-back Rhinos hypothetically could win.
Crackling Doom says this one's all done. Joe Lossett, Timothy Koerber are going to draw here. 5-color Bring to Light and Jeskai Black do not have enough time to finish, so they're both going to slide down to 6-2-2 now. Yeah,
and that's a tough draw there for Lossett, as like I said, a draw here functionally the same as a loss for the purpose of making top 8. But since Lossett was in a losing position, I believe, if that match played out to conclusion, a draw might be a better outcome than the alternative.